Okay, can you please brief about yourself?
Yeah. Hi, this is Ramesh here. So I've been working in automation from last 13 years. So I have involved in multiple uh, framework developments, both in UI automation as well as in API automation. So I have expertise with Selenium with TestNG, as well as I have been uh, also exposed in working with um, multiple API automation technologies, including REST Assured, and we have our own framework for API automation. So that which I have built it on Jersey. So we have been testing few of the REST APIs which our environment exposes. Yeah, and I have exposure on Jenkins pipeline building and jobs configuration and master slave configurations in Jenkins, and also uh, I'm involved in this CI/CD pipelines creation and automation of those pipelines.
Yeah. So can you explain about your roles and responsibilities in the current project?
So currently, I'm working on automation of UI as well as API frameworks. So the day-to-day activities will go in such a way that uh, these the day-to-day activities are like I'll be assigning few of the stories. So I will be working on my story automations and um, and simultaneously we'll be enhancing the existing framework, and along with that we'll be fixing the intermittent failures whatever we see in the build pipelines which are related to uh, the mats and srg. Along with that, I was also involved in leading the team of 5 members, so I'll be responsible for grooming those guys and uh, helping them in their day-to-day activities. So yeah, that's pretty much I do, and I will be also involved in brainstorming sessions with the developer and the design discussions, which are which we will be participating from for our framework, as well as from our stories, as well as as a system as a whole, we will be asked some advices on the system design. The flaws on the system design in the brainstorming session.
What is your major skill set?
Okay. I've been working on uh, Java with Selenium, and I have exposure to REST Assured for automation of REST APIs, and I have been into. I know a bit of Python, and I'm currently working on the robot framework in Python.
Okay. Okay. So what is the project management tool that you use?
We use Jira for tracking our stories, and we also use Qtest also for storing our test cases in a central database. Like in a central system. Uh,
Okay. So currently, which tool you are using for project management?
Jira.
Okay. So do you use any test management tool?
That's what Qtest is, a test management tool where we store all our test cases, and we track them on the basis of which like we have something called uh, a story delivery time frame, and after that we have something called a post release time frame, and after that we have an RC time frame. So in all these time frames we will be tracking using Qtest. We will be tracking all the test cases that got executed through automation, through pipeline, and manually as well. So Qtest is our test management tool.
So what are the major tasks or major things that you do with the test management tool? So what do you do with the test management tool?
So we do a test planning for it's at the system level as well as at the feature level, and we also do the test strategy for a particular feature that we work on, like being in the role, lead role. So once we do the test planning and the strategy, I mean, as part of test planning only, we will do the test strategy. And once the test strategy and the planning things are done, so we will be I mean, we will have those stories defined, and then we create a traceability matrix for the feature level. As I mean, for the feature, how many? I mean, like it's an epic which is we create in Jira, and we do a test traceability matrix. We create a traceability matrix which will map each feature to an epic, and then that epic we will have a feature test traceability where we configure our uh, I mean, like, what are all the stories that will be attached to that epic and all. Yeah, that's what I do in the Q test as well as in the Jira for tracking the test process.
Okay. So, what software lifecycle that you are currently using?
It's an agile Scrum model, so we follow agile Scrum. So the stories will be derived in sprints. Sprint being uh, for 2 weeks. It is I mean the cycle is for 2 weeks. So in that week, 2 weeks we get drops from the development team for that specific feature, and we will be responsible for. I mean, for each drop there will be some set of features, and each feature will be corresponding to a Jira story, and the respective the tester or the test lead will be responsible for completing those for that sprint as per the commitment.
Okay. What is a sprint life cycle? How many days? The duration of the sprint?
It's 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay. So, you might be creating a story, right? For your task.
Yeah.
So, when you
Yes.
create a story, or while you creating the story, so what are the different parameters that you fill?
We provide story points. First of all, it's the story title, the card title, and then the description of it and the acceptance criteria for that particular story we will capture in our description itself. Then we provide story points. Then we will attach that to a sprint, and then I mean we have to fill the sprint, which sprint that story will be taken up, and along with that um, we will have an epic assigned to that. So these are the things that we usually fill, and we each story we will have something like a test spec which will be assigned to a particular story or a group of stories. But each story will have a test spec and as well as a design specification also attached to that.
Okay. So, coming to the story, um, so sprint points is, I mean, story points is one thing, and what about the story duration? So, how do you define the duration of that story?
Uh,
Is it the
Defining the
story?
duration of
Yeah, is it with the story itself, or is it with by creating the subtask on the story?
it usually will have, I mean, like, see, we try to granularize uh, the story to be as independent as possible. If that is not possible, then we try to have, I mean, usually we will have a particular story, we will have three subtasks, one being the test case definition part of it, a subtask where we define all the test cases for that story, and then after that we will have the automation for that. And if for usually for P0 and P1 scenarios, automation, and the remaining will be to have it will track the manual testing. One other subtask will track the manual testing.
Okay. So, coming to the Java, so how do you rate yourself in Java? Let's say 1 to 10.
I rate myself as 7.
Out of 10.
Yeah.
Okay. What is the abstract class?
Uh, abstract class is something like see, we write an abstract class so that we derive a concrete class from that. So to just give an example, if we take a vehicle as a as an interface, and if to that, I mean, the implementation of vehicle will be an abstract class, which will be a car. So each car model will have is a concrete class, which is a subclass of this car. So the generic methods are the specific, I mean, like the general methods or the generic methods, whatever we want to, I mean, we want to give to a class, we abstract them to an abstract class, and we define a class to be abstract. So once we define a class to be abstract, uh, it should have at least one abstract method inside that, and we cannot instantiate that abstract class. So the best example of that is uh, an abstract map interface in the concurrency package, in the collections package, wherein the hash map is derived from that abstract map, and abstract map is a subclass of map interface. So the hash map will have specific features or specific methods for a hash map, but an abstract map will have a general methods, generic methods, where what any map that extends it, like a set sorry like a tree map is another example, which is another which is again a concrete class from the abstract map class.
Okay. So what does it abstract class contains? What kind of methods it can contain?
It'll it will have at at least one abstract method where the definition will be uh, provided, but it will not, I mean, it basically tells what to describe, but it will not tell how to do it. Like it will just tell you, like if you take a car example, whichever I have given earlier. So in that car, which is an abstract class, will have uh, two abstract methods, like uh, brakes is a method which is an abstract method.
Let's stick to the question. So the question is
Mhm.
about so what abstract class contains? What kind of methods? That's all.
It just contains abstract methods.
Okay. So does it also contains non-abstract methods?
Yeah, it can. Yes, it can contain both
Okay.
Abstract methods as non-abstract methods.
Okay. So can
like
we
concrete
create
methods.
Okay. Can we create an object for the abstract class?
No, we cannot do it. We cannot create.
So what is the abstract method?
Abstract method is a method defined in an abstract class, and it has given the keyword abstract before it, but it will not have any definition. So the subclass will override that method, and it will give a concrete implementation for that.
Okay. So what is method overloading?
Method overloading is it is like same signature with different parameters. Like add method you can take, which will take two parameters for two integers like a and b, and there can be an overloaded method add, which will take three parameters, uh, which will uh, which will take three parameters a, b, and c, where we return the value of all three when we add them up. So just to give an example, it's something like this.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay.
Add is
That's okay. No worries. Okay, let's say there are two methods which are having the same name with different parameters. Okay, and
okay.
their return types are same. Can you consider that as a overloaded methods?
Yeah, it is an overloaded method.
Okay, so let's take another example. There are two methods. Okay, same method name and same parameters, and their return types are different. Can I consider
Yeah,
that as a overloaded method?
okay. If the return type is
Written type is different.
typecasted.
Written type is different,
Like
but the method names and parameters are same. Okay, so can it be a overloaded method
like
somewhere?
like if method A returns integer and method B returns double, then it is considered as an overloaded method. If the method A returns an integer and the method B returns a string, then it is not considered an overloaded method. Same is in the same example, right? If method A has a same return type with the uh, with a checked exception which is broader to that of another method, then both are considered as uh, overloaded. Otherwise, it is not.
Okay. So what is the final class? So what happens if I use a final keyword to a class?
Okay. When you we cannot uh, we cannot subclass. I mean, we cannot derive a subclass, or we cannot uh, extend that class to in another class. We cannot do a subclass of that final
So,
class.
yeah. Okay. So what happens if I use final keyword to a variable?
If a variable is final, then you cannot assign another value to it. Like if it is instantiated with 10, then you cannot assign another value to that final variable.
So what about method for a final keyword with a method?
You cannot override that method in the subclass if the method is final.
Okay. So what is inheritance?
It is it's like having I mean it's configuring a parent-child relationship between two classes. We use inheritance for that. Like the base class will be a parent of the subclass, and it inherits the properties of the parent class.
So do you remember what are the different types of inheritance?
Yeah, we have single inheritance and multiple inheritance. And multiple inheritance is not available in Java through classes. And single inheritance, yes, we can.
Okay. So what is interface?
Interface is it's a contract which will where we derive. I mean, we implement the interfaces, and the subclass will implement the interface, and it will use and it will override the methods. It's just a contract to tell the subclass what should it have and how should it have. Oh, not sorry. What are the member variables it should have, and at least the base member variables it should have, and the method it should override.
Okay. So the variables which are in interface are by default of what type?
Yeah, they are by default uh, final, static, public, final, and static.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Can we create an object for interface?
No, we cannot create an object for an interface.
Can I extend a interface?
No, you implement an interface. We cannot extend it. An interface can extend another interface, but a class can only implement it.
Okay. So can a class interface?
No, you implement an interface. We cannot extend it. An interface can extend another interface, but a class can only implement it.
Okay. So can a class inherit how many interfaces? One or more?
Uh, Multiple, n number of interfaces it can implement.
Fine. So what are the different types of collections?
We have set, map, queue, list. These are the collections.
So what is the difference between set and list?
Okay. Set in Java has unique elements, and it can have one. Okay. List in the other case is not unique. you can have multiple duplicate values in a list. And list in Java. It always has it's a doubly linked list where along with the value we have to store the next address in the list, next element's address. But set is it will hold only the values, and you can I mean frequent operations on set is a cumbersome. I mean, like if you want to insert an element into a set, right? It is costlier,
Okay,
but whereas in list it is.
yeah, 1 second. So, what is the major difference between set and list? Only 1 point. The major difference between set and list.
Uh, Major difference is like set always has unique elements inside it, but list is not like that. List will have multiple elements, duplicate elements.
Okay, perfect. So let's go with Selenium. So how do you rate yourself in Selenium? So out of 1 to 10.
6.
Okay. So let's say there is an element in a web application. You need to click on that element. So how do you do that?
Mm, First, create a object of that web element. Identify that web element uh, by ID
Mm-hmm.
or name
Mm-hmm.
or text
Mm-hmm.
or XPath. First we have to derive the locators for that,
Mm-hmm.
and after deriving the locators, we can uh, identify that element by its ID, its name, or the text, or the XPath, or the partial text value.
Okay. Once you identify the element, then
Then get the web element object, and after getting the web element object, we can just do the options on that element. Like if it is a button, we just click on it. If it is text field, we input the text.
okay. So let's say if you need to select an item from a drop down, what do you do?
We use select object. Sorry, select. We use and using the select. Once we first get the web element again using the locator, uh, like uh, just get the web element and pass that web element as an argument to the select class constructor. So instantiate that select class, and once you instantiate the select class, you will get a select object. And after getting the select object, you can just say select dot option. So you can get it in 3 ways: option by name, uh, option by index, or option by display name.
Okay. So let's say you clicked on a button and there is an alert opened. How do you handle the alert?
Okay, so first we create an alert object
So how do you create an alert object?
by passing, by instantiating the alert object and pass the uh, web driver to that alert object. So once the alert object is created, you can just say uh, alert dot perform the operation, like cancel, or let's say I have web driver. Okay, so it will take 2 arguments. One is path to driver. This is let's say I have a driver object like this. Then I'll say So I'll pass like this. Then let's say alert dot close it, or yeah, this is how I can do it. If I want to close an alert.
If you want to accept, I mean, if you want to okay it,
Okay.
an alert can be okay or an alert can be
Yeah,
cancelled.
yeah. We can either close it or we can close it with the alert, right?
Okay, no worries. Let's say there is an element. Next question: there is an element, okay, and that element is in a frame. So how do you access that element which is in a frame?
Okay. So first we have to uh, switch to the frame
Mhm.
by identifying that frame by index or by ID
Okay,
or by XPath.
or by expert.
So
Mhm.
yeah, so it will be like driver dot switch to dot frame. Uh, we can just provide an integer value like 0 if that is the only frame that is available, or we can provide the XPath here instead of the index. So once we do it, it switches to the frame, and then we can create a web element equal to driver dot.
Okay, that's fine. So
Element.
once you switch to the frame,
Yeah,
you access that element, right? Okay.
yeah.
So let's say once you switch to the frame and you access the element and you want to come out of that frame, what do you do?
Then we can say driver dot uh, switch to dot. Um, there was a method which will fall back to the main window.
Okay, that's okay. No problem.
Default window.
Okay. So what is the difference between close and quit?
In Selenium, in a specific element, or
What is the difference between driver.close and driver.quit?
driver dot close will uh, it will close the browser.
Mm-hmm.
Driver dot quit. I have not used it. I never used quit. I think it will kill that process while closing the browser.
Okay. So what are the different wait mechanisms in Selenium?
One is implicit wait, and the other is explicit wait. And there is a fluent wait also, which I have not used it. I have either used implicit wait or explicit wait.
Okay. So what is the difference between implicit and explicit wait?
Implicit wait, it will wait for the web element for a mentioned time interval. So that time interval, it takes two arguments. So it is like that we can give a web element, and then we can either give seconds here or milliseconds or minutes or hours.
So is the implicit wait is applicable only for a element or overall for all the elements which are derived from the same WebDriver object?
It is for all the elements which are derived from that.
So what about explicit wait? Is it applicable for
Ex-
the particular element or all the elements?
it is applicable for any element on the WebDriver object,
Mhm.
but I mean based on a condition.
Okay, so you need to recheck. Okay, that's fine. So let's say you clicked on a button, it has opened a new window.
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you access that new window?
Uh, okay. So there are two ways to do that,
Mhm.
to access a window.
New window.
First is like, sorry,
How do you access the new window? When you click on a button, it has opened a new
correct,
window.
correct. So there are two ways to do that. One is we get the current window ID first, okay, and after getting the current window ID, we switch to driver.switch to window. We provide the uh, window ID or the index of the window. In that case, if there are two windows, right, we just say two, or we can give the ID of the window also, the new window. So once we switch to that, I mean that's how it gets switched to the new window.
Okay. Do you remember the statement to switch to the new window?
Yeah. Mm,
Okay, that's okay, no problem. So let's move on to the API testing. So how do you rate yourself on API testing, API automation? So out of 10.
Um, I'll rate myself as 7 in that.
Okay. So what are the different HTTP methods?
We have majorly we have 5 of them, like get, put, post, delete,
Mhm.
head.
Okay.
So frequently used are get, push, post, and delete.
Okay. Let's say if I want to insert data, if I want to insert a object, so which method do you use?
Uh, Insert is a new data you want to insert, or you just
A
want to.
new data.
Then we use post.
If I want to update the existing data,
We use put to update the
if
existing
I want
data.
to get the data,
We use get
if I want to
method.
delete the data.
We'll use delete.
Okay. So what are the different status codes?
We have uh, 200 or 200x,
Mm-hmm.
2x basically, like 2x for positive response.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so usually we have 200, 201, 204. So you want me to explain these also?
No, just go ahead with the series.
Okay. So the second one is 3x,
Okay. Next.
which represents redirection.
Okay.
We have 4x
Mm-hmm.
for client errors.
Okay.
We have 5x for server errors.
Okay.
So
So
usual 4x are,
yeah, that's fine.
yeah.
So you are familiar with the rest assured, right? Okay. So in the rest assured, what are the major building blocks when you creating a rest request, when you are making a code, rest assured code? Okay. So what are the different blocks of the code? Okay. For example, starting from given. So what else?
Okay. Given,
Hmm.
when, then.
Okay. So what is given used for?
Okay. So given usually will take the URL
Mm-hmm.
or the URI,
Okay.
given URI and the content type,
Mm-hmm.
and given the payload for that, uh, if it is a post or a put call.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what we will give in given.
Okay.
When is the method, like whether it is get, put, post, or delete, then is the response we get.
Okay. So what is the use of expect then? Expect. So there's another block, right?
Expect log. Yeah, yeah.
So what is
I think that this content type and payload is given in the expect log.
okay? So yeah, you need to recheck about expect. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So let's say I have a student data. Okay. Mm,
Okay.
let's say it's in a JSON format, and you need to insert this data, which is in the JSON format. So how do you use rest assured? to insert this JSON data? Can you write it?
Okay. So I'll just say given URI expect post, and I pass the payload.
Okay.
And the content type of it. Okay. Yeah, and I think I have to recheck this.
That's okay. So let's go with some general questions. Okay. So let's say you have the test code, right? Okay. So how do you run your test code?
Mean by using a data provider?
No, basically you have, let's say you have created some test classes. Okay. So you might have created test class 1, test class 2, test class 3, like that. You have created some test classes. Okay. So how do you run all these test classes?
Using TestNG. If I'm using TestNG, I will put them in a XML TestNG XML file, and I will call the runner and run them.
So what do you configure in the TestNG XML? What do you keep in the TestNG XML?
We configure classes that we have to test classes that we have to run in the test suite.
Okay.
Like the test suite tag.
Okay. Let's say I have 1,000 classes. If I want to run 1,000 classes, which are part of the package, same package. Okay. So in that case, you still uses the classes tag or anything else?
No. We can use a suite tag. Where we can mention the whole test suite inside it, and then we can call that test suite in another TestNG XML to run.
All these part of a particular package, not belongs to a particular suite. All these classes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. In that case, we can run that package itself.
Okay.
The whole package. Like in the class, right? If we give, let's say, if the all of these are in like count dot.
Okay, that's fine, and that's fine.
Test.com. Then we can just say star in the class. It will take all the packages, all the test classes in the package.
Basically, you wanted to give the package name.
Yeah.
So that all the test classes.
Yeah. They will be,
which are part of the package. Okay, so so have you used any framework in the UI for UI automation?
Yeah, we use that page object model.
Okay. So what are the different components of your framework? One is page object model is one thing. What are the different other components that you have used in your framework? Or can you briefly explain about your framework?
Okay, the test framework.
Yeah.
Okay, so test framework wise, we have a results section or the results block where all the results get captured. And we have the log section where all the logging happens, and then we have the page object model of Selenium. So inside this page object, we derive classes for each page, and then we have TestNG for executing the packages or classes. So the flow is basically the starting point will be execution of this TestNG class. It will pick all the classes in the TestNG. It will trigger them on a slave box. I mean, like in the slave box, they get triggered. And after the execution happens, the logging support for that execution test log will come from this log section, and it will log all the classes. And once the tests are run, the results will be captured here. In this, we have again two things. One being tracking all failed and passed cases. In the report we get, we extend that custom reports in TestNG, which will report all the failures and all the past classes along with the screenshots.
Okay, so can you explain about page object model?
Okay, page object model is Selenium design pattern. It's basically a UI design pattern where we derive all the classes. Like, let's say we have a login page in our UI. Just for an example. So in that login page, whatever the elements that.
Let's do one thing. Create a login page class for one element.
Okay.
So you have an element called username text field. For that one single element, which is part of the login page, create a page class.
Okay.
Let's create a page class properly. Okay. So how do you create a page class? Okay. Don't write pseudocode or don't write just algorithm. Just write a proper page class.
Okay. So this will be my login. Okay. So here. So it first has properties to be loaded.
Okay. Okay. Don't worry. That's okay. No worries. Yeah, that's fine. So yeah, that's all. I just want to give a brief feedback on what you done. Okay.
Okay.
So ways to switching to the frame is not correct. Initializing the alert, difference between close and quit, difference between implicit wait and explicit wait, switching to the new windows, page object model. Yeah, these are the things that you require to recheck.
Okay. Okay.
So if somebody is using a framework, and page object model is the heart of the framework, core of the framework. Okay, so one must completely aware of the page object model and how to define the page class without any errors, with all the information about that. That is very much for the Selenium interview. Thanks very much.